Welcome to Aloha RubyConf. My name is Evan Mechnic, and we're going to go on kind of a little journey, maybe a little bit of a conversation between the two of us, and it's going to be more or less about Rails development on Windows. No, really. We're actually going to talk about this. And the thing is, before we get started, actually, let's go ahead and do a little bit of introductions. And I hear that it's actually pretty good to get started with a cat picture, right? People like cats, right? So my name is Evan Mechnic, as I said. And I've been doing Ruby/Ruby on Rails. I'll run with this mic. It's cool. Okay. Yeah, I've been doing Ruby/Ruby on Rails since about 2008. Got my start in college, which is amazing because most places teach terrible web development, especially with in terms of Ruby on Rails. I'm an application support engineer for Engineard, which basically means I sit on the computer all day and help people deploy on our platform or use our platform or anything else in terms of stack related stuff. And you can also find me at broadmac.net, which is kind of like it's a really bad blog. But I write there every now and then. But the other information's there as well. You can go find out information about me there. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Windows really gets no love whatsoever, and this is kind of the traditional thing. But the thing is, it's not really exactly true, because there have been a lot of people that have put in a lot of effort to try to get Windows as kind of like a first-class citizen. But still, there's still a very Unixy feel to Ruby itself, and so anybody that's ever tried to use it on Windows will notice that either your gems don't work or just weird stuff happens, and a lot of it's not really explainable. And the thing about this that's kind of disturbing is that 25% of our trial users for Engineard come from Windows, which if you think about it, we do thousands, a good amount of customers, every month, and a quarter of that is coming from Windows. That's a pretty staggering number if you think about it. And these are people that maybe they might not have a lot of experience with programming in general, and they're picking up Ruby on Rails, for their first thing, which I wouldn't have done. But hey, we've made it pretty easy to get running. So instead of having this attitude, where, dude, you're on Windows, kind of go away, There's a couple people in the community that have had the attitude, let's make a package that installs everything to make it easy for people to get up and running really quickly. So we've got Rails installer that installs all these packages, and basically the only thing you're missing right here to start writing full-blown applications is a text editor. I mean, if you want to count, Notepad as a text editor, go ahead, but you'll have a lot of fun with that one. But because of this is pre-Rails installer on Mac OS X. It was actually easier to get up and running on Windows than it was on a Mac. I mean, with a Mac, you open a thing up and you gotta in there install Xcode or say GCC, some of those other things, because Apple doesn't want to give you the opportunity to build packages, right? So these guys, built a really nice package that just installs everything. You can about 20 minutes, download and install everything. You can get up and running. I know, right? So this is great news. You can do all this stuff very quickly, but the problem with that is you still have a lot of customers who feel like this, and I mean, I'll tell you, when I first started doing this and started exploring this topic, I felt like this a lot of times, and I kind of took it kind of for granted that, I knew what I was doing with Ruby on Rails, so, I'll just, throw it all on Windows and I'll be good to go. But I did find myself a lot of times, just really getting angry with the computer. My wife could tell you, she's like, dude, he just does not want to be in Windows at all. So I felt, I started out with like a virtualized environment, so I felt I needed to really jump into it, head first, kind of feel exactly what everybody's experiencing, because otherwise, you really have no great context. So the first thing you need to know, there's basically two ways. I mean, there's a couple different virtualizing things, but there's two ways. You can either virtualize your environment to where you run Windows inside your Mac. Okay, I'm coming from a Mac, so bear with me if you're actually on Windows. So there's basically two ways. You can run a virtualized environment, either in like Parallels or VMware. So you're still in your Mac. Some of them actually, abstract things out to where you kind of run a program, but it still looks like it's in a Mac. But that doesn't really give you, the experience, right? So the other option is Boot Camp. And Boot Camp is a wonderful thing because it makes it very easy for you to get up and running. You don't really have to think about anything. You just kind of click buttons, and you have Windows installed on a separate partition. You can dual boot really easily. So this is great. It also gives you the ability to get completely immersed in Windows, which, that's a scary topic, but that's the only way you're going to actually get a feel for this stuff. The only way I could get a feel for this stuff, So I've done the boot camp stuff. I've installed Windows, and I'm running Windows 7. Not even going to touch Windows 8. But what's next after you get up and running there? Well, you basically need your Ruby on Rails environment set up. And with a Ruby on Rails environment, to really be able to develop an application, a full-blown application, and also kind of, collaborate with other people, because we like to do that, right? What do you need? So you need Ruby on Rails, obviously. With Windows, you also need SQLite, because that's kind of, makes development very easy. You also need Git, because everybody wants to be able to share code or use code with everybody else, and SVN sucks. And you need a way to build native extensions. And so what exactly is native extensions? Well, on Unix, Ruby's built in C, right? So on Unix, it's not a problem just to compile your stuff with a C compiler. But on Windows, shit just gets weird. So you really just need a way to compile those extensions and use those same gems, libraries that you're used to using, but in a Win32 environment. So I decided to make it easy on myself, and I'm gonna go on a disclaimer. I work for EngineYard. We sponsored Rails installer, so I figured that's the best way to go. The users coming in doing our trial are using the same software. So this is what I'm going to use. I'm not going to, I actually went down the road to compile my own stuff and see how that goes. But Rails installer makes it a lot easier if you actually want to do this. So you've installed Rails installer. Let me go actually on a tangent and talk about my workflow a bit before we get into kind of the next thing about after you've installed everything. So with a Mac, it's very command line oriented if you want it to be, and I love the command line. I kind of live in it. So my editor of choice is Vim, and when I'm writing stuff, I open up Vim real quick, edit a file. If I want to actually open a full folder, I can do that too, but I usually tend to just edit files, switch to a new file, open up another file, whatever. But it's all done in the command line, and I like that because it kind of makes the context shift a lot easier. But the thing is, Vim really sucks on Windows. And say what you will, I've done it both ways, but it's really, it's cross-platform, but it's really not made for that. It's really made for being run on the command line. Yes, you have gvim, which is a graphical way, but I kind of butt heads a lot when I was trying to do that. The other part of my workflow that really kind of makes sense with this stuff is spaces. And I don't remember what it's called in Mountain Lion. They've done it, or Lion, whatever. But I like to switch a lot of times back and forth between multiple desktops. And if you've done this on a Mac, it's really nice and easy. Everything works really well, fast. Same thing on Linux. I used to use Linux as well. And just, switch to different desktops, make things easier. Like, I can have an editor open in one screen, say I have a browser open in another screen. All this kind of stuff to where, I can kind of separate my stuff, but I still can switch back and forth really quickly without having to do Alt-Tab. That's not on Windows. So it kind of makes my whole workflow go to crap. I mean, so I had to kind of think about things from a different perspective. I really kind of take a different approach. So I kind of went back to the drawing board. And when I started with Ruby and Rails, it was in Windows. But I also started, because it's kind of encouraged by our professor to use what's called an IDE. If you've never heard of that, it's an integrated development environment. And all it does is really gives you kind of the terminal. You might get a browser as well, but you also get your text editor all in one kind of nice little packagey program. And after really fighting to not go this way, I kind of succumbed to the fact that if you're in Windows, everything's kind of focused on one window being full screen. This is a lot of people's workflow. So using an IDE really makes sense in this environment. So that's what I did. And I tried a couple of different ones. Like I tried RubyMine, Aptana. I kind of settled on Aptana, but it's all kind of personal preference there. And the thing is, I've always had kind of a love-hate relationship with IDEs. And this is also why I didn't really want to go back to that if I didn't have to. Because, on one hand, IDEs are mostly overkill for Rails development. Like a lot of times what I need to do is I need to open up a file, edit it really quickly, and check what's going on in my browser, see how things are working. So I don't need to open a whole program. That's why I like using Vim in the command line. It's just really nice and light. But they also make things very convenient. Like I said, everything's packaged in one program. So you have all these things, and I don't do the browser in program because I think that's just kind of weird. But I can still edit stuff in the program on the text editor, and then just press a button or key combination, which is probably faster, to run my server or run my tests or whatever, and check how things are going. So it really makes things easy, especially if you're running in Windows. Just like that's kind of how things should be in there. So you've got things set up and you can write your application now. Okay, the next thing that really kind of threw me for a loop was testing. And the first thing I did when I created my Rails application. So the first thing I wanted to do is say, okay, I want to write a test, to see, whatever. Maybe I want to check that everything's wired up correctly. And I experienced a bit of agony because of the fact that Windows is just really, really slow, at least MRI, okay? This is what we're talking about here. It's just really, really slow. And this, is mainly due to the fact that, it's really never been emphasized in this environment. So things are, it takes probably a good, 30 seconds, 45 seconds to run a test. And I'm not even loading the Rails environment. I'm just running Ruby on a mini test or something like that. It's really the reason that for it to take so long, it was kind of baffling. So we have our friend Google, and if you're running, Windows, this is kind of a huge savior. A lot of times, somebody's kind of run into this issue before, but I have no idea. So I'm hitting Google and I'm saying, okay, how can I make my test faster on Windows? And it turns out that MRI is really the big culprit here. And I don't know all the specifics behind it. I'm sure you can probably ask, one of the core team members about that. But that's kind of what all the blog posts and questions and all that kind of stuff alluded to. So there's a thing called the Code Shop, and they have like a GitHub section where you can actually go there. And what they do, their kind of mission is to make Windows, or Ruby running on Windows a lot easier and faster. So if you're going to run, if you're going to do some Rails development, you're going to run Ruby on Windows, this is what you're going to want to go to. And so, if you want to check it out, you can always check it out at, that's the GitHub page. But basically, I took this, their Ruby, which is, it has a lot of patches. You can do all this stuff manually if you want to, but they've kind of packaged everything up and kind of shimmed it into the Rails installer Ruby right there. I just, basically just takes making, changing your path and, kind of pointing stuff differently. So it was actually a lot easier than it sounds. So this caused, less agony. I can actually run tests. It cut the tests about half, about half the time, which is still, it's kind of slow, but it's acceptable. Like, I can run a test and I don't have to go to Twitter. And the thing is, so, I've got these tests running now, and I love Guard. I use it, when I'm in Mac to be able to, do stuff so I don't have to do it every time. I'm all about automating things. And Guard makes it easy to kind of, set up stuff, run tests automatically, if they fail, does all that stuff automatically, But the thing is, like, Guard sucks on Windows. I kept running into the problem where if a test failed, it would run it over and over and over and over and over. It never stopped running, which is really, really neurotic. So I decided to kick it old school and run with actually auto test. And I know auto test has kind of gotten pushed to the back of the burner since Guard, but if you're in Windows, auto test actually works pretty well, which means that I was able to just set it up and it runs stuff. And it would run my tests. If they failed, then it would stop running them again until I fixed it, and then it would run them again. So it was nice. So that kind of brought me to Growl, and with Mac you have Growl, and it's really nice, and we got these nice notifications. Now we have Notification Center, where you can kind of see how your stuff's actually working without having to go back to the command line and check it. And it's always kind of it's not really great on Windows, I'll tell you that much. So if you want to actually implement this to be able to see how your tests are running, it takes a little bit of work. But I mean, that's the only way you can really do it. So I mean, if you want to check out Growl, just Google around for it. There are people who've done it. Auto test is the way to go if you're going to run with Growl. So now you've got everything set up. You're writing your applications. Okay, you're testing your stuff, which is great. Now you want to collaborate, and so you want to be able to push your stuff to GitHub, collaborate. You got your SSH key set up. You kind of have two directions you can go to in terms of collaboration. You can run with regular Rails installer with the with the native, just the regular one Ruby. But if you want to run multiple Rubies, for your collaboration, say you've got, one of your team members who is running 187 for their application, and you want to kind of, say you want to contribute to that. Well, you can set up, Sigwin or RVM. I mean, it kind of goes together in one package, to be able to switch Rubies. So in Windows, this is kind of good. It really, it's kind of a Unixy feel, but it doesn't feel like a Windows environment. And so you're still kind of butting heads if you go this route. And I've done it. RVM does work on Sigwin, but I mean, it's not the preferred method. So you've got another thing. I mean, it's also for experts only. We've got another thing called pick. And pick is a really nice thing to switch Rubies on Windows. You can check it out at the GitHub page, but really what it does is it makes it easy to, it's really like RVM, but built for Windows. So you can, actually I should say, it's more like RBM. So you don't have gem sets and stuff like that, but you can really, it makes it easy to install different gems. You can actually install Iron Ruby if you want to try that, and go the .NET route. But this really makes it easy if so you can go with your other teammates and collaborate. Say I want to run 192, I can just pick 192. If I want to run 193, I can pick 193. So say you have like some like JRuby or Rubinius, and you want to install that. I mean, you can install it using pick install, but you can also say you want to build it with some different options or whatever configurations. You can also install that like you normally would, but then use pick and say, hey, pick, this is where my installation is for for JRuby or Rubinius. So you can kind of play around with it. It's really it does a lot of great things in terms of Windows. So that's kind of all I had in terms of my experience. It's a lot of it's still kind of new, and there's a lot of work to be done. But really, it's not the big scary monster that it sounds like. I mean, I got into it, well, I got the talk acceptance, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna sit in Windows, on like a weekly basis, because I don't think I could sit in there daily. And but it really got down to like, if as long as you really get into the whole Windows thing, like coming from a Mac, if you get into it and commit to it, it's not as bad as it sounds. But the thing is, you guys can help this, and you guys can make it easier for other people to be able to get going on Windows. So one of the biggest ways, and one of the biggest problems that when you're trying to develop, is that some gyms do not run on Windows, and people just do not test their stuff there. I mean, you're writing your gem on a Mac. It's probably going to work on Linux. You might need to make a couple of changes, but really it's pretty minimal. But I mean, if you want to write to run on Windows, I mean, you really got to invest in, okay, how do I run this? Do I need to build a binary file? This kind of stuff. So I mean, there's resources out there, but really, if you're going to start writing gems, you're going to start writing your own libraries, whatever, please at least try to check it out, test it on Windows, because some people might like the idea or might want to use it. It's in some application, you want to install it, using Bundler. If it doesn't build on Windows, you're kind of crap. Crap out of luck. So the other way you can help is, there's a lot of people out there that have really kind of contributed to running Windows and running Ruby in a Windows environment. Wayne Seguin, you guys probably all heard of him. Louis Lavina, Ken Collins. These guys all do a lot of great work in terms of making it easy to run stuff on Windows. So you can always tweet them a beer, which is a nice service, or you can also use GitTip, which kind of gives them a little bit of money, help them out with what they're doing. Say their daily job doesn't involve contributing to open source. Well, give them a little money to help them out, when they're not in the daily grind. All right, I'll finally wrap it up, right? So we've kind of talked a bit about how things have gone, and how you can get started and running, but I mean, really, it boils down to people actually taking the time, stepping into this stuff, and seeing for themselves how things work. And it's very enlightening. So if you get a chance, definitely even if you just fire up a VM and you want to see how Ruby works on there, just take the time and actually go get into that stuff and see what things are like. You'll kind of have a different perspective going into everything else. All right, that's about all I have in terms of presentation. Does anybody have any questions or anything? Sweet. No. All right, nobody else has anything. I will leave it here and say thank you guys very much. I hope you enjoyed it, and go ahead and try things out and have a little fun.